Good morning, Doris. I actually thought about going outside. I see you did that.
I did. Yes, yes. The
I was
nice
trying.
day.
I was trying to figure out a space for me to do that without so many interruptions, and there's not a space like that at my house.
Okay. Well, I have space everywhere since it's only me.
Well, my girls are. We all kind of slept in this morning, and so they're still busying themselves with some chores. So
Yeah, yeah. I can understand that. Yeah. Well, I did too. I had to rush. I said, "Oh my Lord, let me get in the shower and put some
same,
clothes
same.
on."
Good morning, everyone. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, sir.
Mhm.
Great, great. I'm going to
I
call
can
our
hear you.
meeting to order. Great, great, great. Before we start, let's pause for a moment of silence, please. Thank you. Next, I just want to mention that we're still meeting under the governor's executive order, number 34. We are streaming and recording our meeting. In addition, we have an interpreter. We're also practicing social distancing. With that, let me do a roll call. Kevin,
I'm here.
Wayne,
Here.
Doris,
Here.
Jim,
Here.
Carol. Carol. Janice,
Present.
AJ,
Here.
Shannon,
I'm here.
okay, we have everyone present except Carol. Maybe she will join us shortly. Next, we have approval of the agenda. Did I get a motion?
So
So
moved.
moved. Second.
Motion and a second. Okay.
Well, this is already like,
Okay, Kevin,
Yes.
Wayne,
COVID-19
Yes.
related.
Doris,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Carol.
We're gonna start Monday. There's no way.
Michelle's not joining us. Janice,
Yes.
AJ,
So what I'm gonna tell
Yes.
Shannon.
you guys,
Yes.
here's what we're doing.
Thank
We're gonna start-
The agenda is adopted. Thank you. Our action item is approval of proposed 2021 budget. Before we get into that, I'm going to see if any board members other than the budget committee we met yesterday have any questions. We have Holly, Ray, and myself available for any questions that you may have before I turn it over to the budget committee chair.
I would like to not ask a question, but I will like to say I appreciate the budget committee, Superintendent Washington, Superintendent-elect King, for your diligence. You know, when I first looked at the budget, I had quite a few concerns, but you guys, with the money that we have, and we know the shortfall of this pandemic, but you really were diligent. You hammered this budget out, and there are many things on here that I saw, but I just like to point out that you have made this teacher and student friendly. You looked at it, and I'm sure that the teachers are going to applaud you, because when we have happy teachers, we're going to have better instruction for our children. You save teachers and other staff members' jobs. You even put in a provision for, we know that they can't get a raise, but a bonus, just to say, we are looking at you. We know what you're doing. And that means so much. So I just wanted to say thank you for doing this. You hammered it out, you met, and this is a great thing. So just thank you.
Thank you, Doris. Let me say before any questions come up, I appreciate the hard work that Holly, and Ray, and Dr. King put into this budget. It's been challenging. If you look at the budget summary, it sums it up that putting this budget together, this financial operation, some challenging times with the pandemic, of course. The county has revenue constraints. So I think we pulled this thing together and took it apart several times. It's been a lot of hard work, and I appreciate that. Our financial coordinator, superintendent-elect for working so hard putting this thing together. With that, any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, I would just like to concur with what you and Ms. Black had initiated within the budget and the perimeters that the team at the Jackson-Madison County School System has presented as far as the budget is concerned. I know that it was a team effort and they worked diligently, as Ms. Black stated, on this in order to bring forth something that we could present to the commissioners and something that we could pass on until we're able to do better. Certainly, you know, I don't think that more thanks would be able to be given to each and every one that participated in this in order to submit, you know, a budget in time enough for this 2021 school year. So with that being said, I would just like to say, you know, continuous thanks to each and every one who have made this possible, because I know that this was very difficult, you know, during this time in making decisions that may not been favorable to everyone, but decisions that were necessary in order for us to move forward.
Thank you, Janice. Okay, no other questions. I'll turn it over to Jim Campbell, our Budget Committee Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, we'll get to it in a minute. We do have one issue, I think, to hash out, and that's in the education capital budget. There's been some language that was added that, and maybe I missed it yesterday, but I was not clear that that's what we were talking about doing. So we need to talk about that. But let me just make a few general comments on the 141 budget. Any budget, anytime you go through a year and you look at your actual results, compare them back to your budget, there are always hits and misses. There are areas where you've done better than budget and areas where you have not done as well as you budgeted. And I just want this board to know that if we look at this budget right now, there are more opportunities, in my opinion, to miss this budget than there are to beat the budget on both the revenue and the expense side. And we can go through and look at any detail you want to, but like I say, on both revenues and expenses, I honestly think that there are more opportunities for us to come in worse than projected than what we've projected here. There are a number of items that the team has gone through, a number of expenditure items and tweaked down, looking back at historical data. And what that does is that just takes out some of your buffer in it. So I want this board to understand that you know, this budget could likely be worse at the end of the day than what we projected here. The big item, though, that there's been very little consideration given to is what is it going to cost us next year to open school? And I think we all agree it's absolutely imperative that we open school. We've got to get these kids back in school next year. And I say next year, that could be within the next 2 months if it's August. It's hard for me to believe that we're going to be ready to open in August, but certainly soon we need to be ready to open school. And really, other than a line item for cleaning buses, we really don't have any kind of projection in here for what it's going to cost us to operate and what I think we should anticipate to be a continued COVID-19 environment. And so I say all that to say, if you look at this budget as presented, we are assuming right now that we will receive our full funding in FY20 for maintenance of effort, and that we will have the full funding under maintenance of effort for FY21. And so even with that, you can see, and I think this board needs to be prepared that we likely will see a decline in our fund balance as we try to figure out the best practices on opening this school and getting our kids back to school in an environment that's safe for both them and our teachers. I don't know. Before we leave 141, I would just ask: are there any questions anybody on the board has? There's a great summary there at page 3 and page 4 that hits some of the highlights. But again, I would stress there are a lot of opportunities for this, to be too optimistic. This is not a conservative budget. Let me just say that. So, does anybody on the board have any questions about the 141 budget? I don't hear any. Let me ask if either Mr. Washington or Holly or Dr. King would like to make any comments on this 141 budget.
Well, I'll just comment, like we talked about yesterday and actually the budget committee meeting, we just assessed our needs, looked at things that were changing over prior year, try to minimize the impact on personnel and look at ways that we can adjust, knowing full well that it's going to be a challenge to reopen school even from transportation to nutrition. Classroom management, it's going to be a challenge across the board. We're working to put together several scenarios for reentry. You have the theory of alternating days. You have the theory of mixing in virtual. You have the 612 model where they do something different than K-5. So there's just a lot of things out there. We're continuing to get guidance from both the CDC and the state as to how reopening may look. We know that reopening may not look the same across the state, given some districts and counties haven't had any COVID cases, and then some have had, per capita an explosion. We're kind of on the lower end of it, thank goodness, where we, I think today's count was 179, with 163 having recovered. So we just continue to be cautious and put together scenarios and work with community stakeholders to see what we can map out. As far as reentry, Dr. King is putting together a new normal task force initiative in which he's going to explore several options for reentry, and we've already started that process. So that's where I stand right now, based on this budget and what we know we've got coming at us, along with the whole Madison and JCM move. And we may talk about that a little bit later, but we know we have 2 schools in FY 2022 that we plan to open and have been gearing up for many, many reasons. And we're just working towards all of that. Thank you.
Right. Hey, Ray, I have a question. I haven't had an opportunity to sit in on any of the county budget committee meetings or financial management committee meetings. What do you believe the response from the county commission is going to be to this? What can we expect down the road as we present this budget as we have it stands today, if we submit it? Well,
what I expect is there's going to be some challenges on their end as far as maintenance of effort, we have to wait for the legislature to determine if they have to provide maintenance effort or not. We show an ADM reduction of 105 in K-12, but we added 100 students in pre-K. So the total real net loss is 5 students, but based on the ADMs, the way the state counts it, it's 105. So that's about $400,000 right there that's kind of in flux, whether we should or should not be decreased by that much in maintenance of effort. And we can get that worked out, I think. You know, I think there'll be some things that they question why we did certain things, of course, and we'll be able to respond to that, and we'll be able to come to an agreement, I do believe. But at the same time, I know that they have challenges as they estimate that there'll be a $3 million shortfall this year, and it's kind of unknown next year. I know the first number they put out was $10 million, but it seems like that sales tax are coming in a little bit better than anticipated. So, you know, at that point, I don't know what the revenue will look like, but we have planned that we would get maintenance of effort based on current law for this year and next year with this budget. But I just know that there'll be some pushback based on local sales tax revenue and some other variables. So we're prepared to deal with that.
You mentioned, Mr. Chairman, if I may, you mentioned some things they're going to question why we did them. Do you feel comfortable highlighting a couple of those?
I'm sorry, AJ.
That's to either whoever wants to respond to that. What are we talking about? What are they going to question why we did something the way we did? What I just want to be prepared. For questions.
A couple things. Amresco is a long-time capital project that we've been paying out of operational expense. The county funded an energy efficient situation for us 10 years ago, and there's a 15-year payoff for that. We budget to pay the full amount to them this year, but 1/3 next year, you know, in conjunction with what's going on. So that'll be questioned, you know, why aren't you going to pay us the full amount? We asked for a deferral during this time, but at least we put in 1/3 of that payment. So things like that are going to be questioned.
Okay.
Things like that are going to be questioned. Yes.
AJ, there's several. I think maybe a different way to frame it is we've made best case assumptions in here on a lot of things. And so to raise the point, we made I think it's a reasonable request given all we've got to do, but that's an assumption that they're going to go along with reducing that Amoresco payment.
And you guys feel pretty confident?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I assume you do because it came out of, I wasn't able to sit in on the budget committee meeting yesterday, and I apologize. Yeah. I may have missed some of this conversation, but I mean, everything, you feel confident everything's defendable, at least in a common sense type way like that. Amoresco, we had talked about that before this moment, and I understood that completely. I think that, I mean, we're doing deferments here at the bank for customers who are in need, and you know, we're allowing them to put off payments just because you can't get blood out of a turnip, as our county commission has said. So I understand that completely. But other pieces, you guys feel confident with the defense of those items?
Yes, and we have defended those in discussion in the budget committee meeting. And as we led up to this, everything that we did, we talked about amongst ourselves and played devil's advocate to come up with what we've done. So we just try to work it as best we can. Now, of course, there are going to be questions that come up that we may not have anticipated, but at the same time, I don't think there's anything that we've done that we can't openly discuss and give a reasonable explanation for why we've done it.
Okay, thank you.
I think, AJ, we're in an environment where everyone is stressed financially.
Sure.
Us, county commissioner, and everybody. So, yeah, absolutely. Everything in here we think is very reasonable and necessary. Again, I go back to especially that we don't know what it's going to cost us to deal with COVID-19 next year. We just know that we've got to get school open, get these kids back in school. And we don't really know right now what that's going to cost to do that. And so I think everything we've got in here is reasonable. And I think we've shown an aggressive posture in trying to go through and aggressively reduce expenditures wherever we can. So yeah, we're operating in good faith. It's defensible, but we are in an environment where everybody's stressed financially.
Sure. Well, I applaud y'all's efforts as well. This has been, I know it's been a high mountain to climb, but I appreciate your efforts getting it done.
Well, quite candidly, and you're right. It has been a huge effort. The real credit goes to Mr. Washington and Holly and the whole team they pulled together. It's been a fluid situation and been a fluid situation and a very, very challenging one. And they're the ones that really deserve, I think, a lot of the credit here. Holly, is there anything you'd like to add to what we said in order to make sure the board has a solid understanding of what's in this budget, what's involved here?
For the most part, I feel like everything's been addressed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
The question regarding the cost of the opening of schools next year is out there. So you may see that we come back to the board in the fall requesting funds to do some things that we didn't realize at this point that we would need to do.
Okay. What about Dr. King? Anything you'd like to contribute or add to the conversation?
Jim, I don't think he's on the call. I don't think, is he?
Oh, Dr. King's not on the call.
I don't think he is. I think he had a scheduling conflict.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Then what about other committee members, Carol and Kevin? Anything you want to add on the 141 budget?
No, Mr. Campbell, I just want to thank everybody for all the hard work they did to get it done. They did a great job, and I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. Carol, anything you want to add?
Jim, I don't think she came on either.
Okay. All right. Mr. Chairman, if we can, I would like to move to the education capital budget because I do have a concern there. And let's move into that.
Okay.
Mr. Campbell, I had a quick question.
Okay.
And you may not know the answer to this, but we've talked about this anticipated expense of what it's going to cost us to open school in the fall. We don't know what that's going to look like. I mean, I think we can create some scenarios, but is there any money in this budget as it stands right now to cover any of those expenses other than, I know I saw, and I think Mr. Washington alluded to, or maybe you alluded to, cleaning buses. Is there any other money in this budget for that?
The simple answer to that is no.
Okay.
So what we're doing is we're using our I'm sorry, didn't mean to cut across anybody. I'm sorry.
No.
Our CARES Act allocation, which is going to net us about $3.1 million after we give the allocation that we need to the private schools. We're looking at using much of that, that's what it's supposed to be used for, to help us with reentry. We just don't know how much more it's going to take. We have cleaning supplies. We may have to order kiosks for temperature readings as people enter and go in and out of school. Of course, virtual learning will increase. There's a lot of things that are going to change with reentry, and it may change throughout the year. How we start may not be the way we end. So, there's just a lot of variables out there, and that's why we have to be protective of our fund balance, looking at, what we have to spend as we have to make adjustments as we go. So we're working on several different scenarios, like we stated earlier, and we'll just see how those look and what we have to do to accommodate them and just move through it one step at a time, because it's going to be new to everybody. I mean, as far as transportation, we talk about cleaning buses, but how many people will be able to ride on a bus? How will cafeterias look? Will we be eating in classrooms? What does it take to accommodate that? We just don't know yet.
Any other questions on the 141 budget?
Hey, Jim, could I add one thing?
Yeah.
One of the things that we did, if you look at page 3, budget summary, we were concerned and we were intentional on trying to not dive so much into our fund balance. Remember the original budget, we think we had dived into our fund balance about $6 million. So we've actually cut that to about $2.8 million. And when you look at page 3, you see where some of those expenditures were reduced. And that was intentional. So I think that's one of the things that I think is critical, that we have maintain a manageable fund balance, not knowing how school is going to look like this upcoming year.
Yeah, and Mr. Chairman, that's a great point. And again, that's what I was trying to say a few minutes ago. This team has worked aggressively to reduce expenditures wherever they can. But you're right, this is a significant improvement over what we were projecting in the first budget that we looked at. And I will say one other thing. If you look at page 3, where you see that regular education textbooks reduction, $796,000. We've, you know, in all of our budget meetings, been sensitive to not going backwards on our curriculum. And we you know, I think we're all very, very appreciative that the district has been able to put in place a curriculum, an integrated, comprehensive curriculum for K through 12 for the 4 major subjects. And so we've asked every meeting where we see potential cuts. We know we may not be able to keep making progress like we wanted to, but we wanted to make sure that we were not taking a step backwards. And I think, Mr. Washington, you assured us that this budget does not take us a step backward on our curriculum. Is that right?
Yes, as I alluded to yesterday, some of that, we were looking to buy head-on textbooks to get some discounts. So instead of doing that, we'll just continue to buy year to year for the time being. We haven't done anything that's going to stop our progress. We were looking at some different paperback issues that were becoming a little bit worn and replacing them. So we might be able to hold on to them for another year. So we're not doing anything to hinder the progress that we're making with our math curriculum or our English language arts. Science and social studies just came on board universally this past year, but there's certain things that have to be replaced and have to be done, and there's some things that we could put off another year, and there's things that we would have liked to have added that we're not able to add right now, but we're not doing anything to hinder the progress that our students have been making in those subject matter areas. We're not doing anything to hinder that progress.
Okay.
And as money becomes available, that is the first thing that comes back in.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, I'm going to suggest, if there are no more questions on 141, that we go to the education capital budget. And I'm going to suggest that we look at the last document on BOE. It's the one that I think is proposed expenditures detail. And at one point, there were 2 of these, and I think we've taken one off, but the one we want to look at is the one that has 2 notes down at the bottom of it. And I'll give everybody just a minute to get to that page. This is, Mr. Chairman, I think this is something we need to discuss and make sure that everybody's clear on.
Okay.
Does everybody have that document? Is there anybody that does not? Okay.
I'm sorry, Jim, which one? What number
It's the
are we
one
looking at
that's,
again?
it should be on your BOE. It should be the last one, but it's the one that says education capital 177, and then over at the top left there it says proposed expenditure detail. I think we just need to let everybody take a minute and find it, because I think this is an important discussion. Is there anybody that does not have it?
I don't yet.
Okay.
I have got to, I didn't bring my computer.
Kevin, we did not, this is the one we talked about changing the language down at the bottom. So we did not see this language yesterday.
Right.
So
Okay.
Hey, Jim,
Yes, sir.
Holly's gonna pull it up on the screen.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Okay. Right.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Everybody see it?
Does everybody see that?
Yes, yes, I see it.
Holly, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
I didn't know we could do that. So,
You're welcome.
so here's the concern here that I want to, two real concerns here. Number one, this thing lists the details of the planned, right now, the planned capital expenditures for next year. And it reflects down there $2.4 million left over in a fund balance. Does everybody see that?
Yes.
$2,413,952.
Mm-hmm.
What's not in that number yet are the budgeted expenditures for our portion of the division of responsibilities on Madison and on JCM. You all recall that we looked at a detailed breakdown of the items that we are responsible for furnishing for these schools to open, with a budget beside each one. And those numbers, they actually added up to about $5.2 million, but 300,000 of that is coming out of the food services budget. And that's taken care of. That's for kitchen equipment. And that's taken care of. So we've got that covered, but it still leaves, with contingency, about 4.9 million that we budgeted to cover our share of things that are going to be necessary for these two schools to open. And so that's not in these numbers. So what that means is that, yeah, we're showing 2.4 million here, but we really need that plus another 2.5 million to cover our responsibilities for opening the schools. And those dollars have to go, they have to be committed and spent this year in order for schools to be ready to open next year. Now, let me stop right there. Does everybody understand that? And any questions on that?
So I'll jump in right quick since I hadn't heard anything, but we've been working with the budget committee, with the county commission. They're aware of this also, of these capital expenses as far as infrastructure goes. We're talking about furnitures, fixtures, and equipment that need to go into these schools, the actual cameras that are not a part of the construction of the building. So all these things that we're talking about are not a part of the actual construction of the building, but things that are necessary for schools. And I mentioned again, furniture, cameras, some technology things, and we'll have firmer numbers as we get closer. None of this has been bid yet. So these are estimates as we have seen or got professional estimates on what it would cost to do the things necessary to make sure that we have the proper infrastructure in these facilities. So Commissioner Stevens and I have been talking about this all along, and these are the funds that we have set aside to help accomplish that. And I'll continue to work with the county on this subject as we move closer and closer to next August.
Okay.
So I think everyone's aware of what's going on as far as the budget committee and the capital committee on the county side. And we have made a sacrifice, as we talked about a few weeks ago, foregoing the locker rooms at West Bemis and JCT to hold some money back so that we can help prepare for this upcoming event.
Thank you, Mr. Washington. Now, at our meeting yesterday, while discussing this, Mr. Washington said, you know, really, we need to allocate $250,000 for what I understood were things like, for JCM, for things like athletic equipment, uniforms, band, extracurricular things that are going to be necessary for the school to really start up and you know, and have everything ready to go athletically and for the other extracurricular activities. And so we talked, and Kevin, you jump in, and Carol, if you're on, but I thought we were talking about allocating $250,000 of this 2.4 for that, which is reasonable and makes sense. This, and we suggested that we put a note down there so everybody knows it and remembers it and doesn't forget about it. I frankly was not expecting to see a note that says we're allocating $250,000 for a track and field.
Right.
And
I
so,
think,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, that's something internally that needs to be cleared up. I think during the conversation, some things were misunderstood, and Dr. King and I will make sure that's cleared up. We're looking at the activities. JCM was cleared out 5 years ago or more when it was done. They don't have anything to start with. Basically, football equipment and things of that nature have been changed over the last several years and need to be updated. Uniforms, band, it's not just sports, band, choir, all activities basically at JCM will have to start all over from scratch. And we're just trying to make some allocation for that. The subject of track and field got brought up in a different manner. But at the same time, I hope everybody understands what we're really trying to accomplish here is at least set aside some funds in recognition that that school will be starting from scratch with all activities.
What?
May I add something?
Yes.
Okay, there's $260,000 allocated in the operating budget for startup at JCM in regards to athletics, fine arts, library, CTE, and office administration.
Right.
Well, so do we need this $250,000?
I do believe so, and if we don't, that's why it's in fund balance right now in case we do need it. So we put some money in operationally, and we put this in fund balance kind of designated in case we do need it. And if not, we can pull it and put it somewhere else.
Well, let me, and Mr. Chairman, I'm just going to make a suggestion here that we change this language to say to support athletic and extracurricular activities at JC. And because it's still sensitive to the fact we've still got a lot of money to find in order just to open those schools. And before we get started working on a track and field there, I think we've got a lot to do just to get the schools open.
Go ahead.
We can take the statement off.
Like I said before, we'll work with Dr. King to adjust that statement based on specifically what's going on, but we put it in fund balance to allow some flexibility. We just really wanted to let people know that it was designated. We had it earmarked. Although it's in fund balance, all these funds are earmarked. The 2.163, the 250 is not like we just have that money sitting out there. We do have an idea of what we want to spend it on while it is in fund balance, but being in fund balance, it'll allow us to adjust. We put some money in operating. We don't know if that'll be enough, but at the same time, we have a fund balance that we want to use towards our capital needs. So we're just trying to balance things and make sure we have some flexibility going forward.
Whatever the case with the funding, it will have to come to the board by way of budget amendment for approval as to what it's spent on.
Yeah, so.
And Jim, let me add also, let me add also, Mr. Washington mentioned that this is a startup school. One of the things that in our discussion, I know what Dr. King discussed about this, the fact that in the startup, the school will not have a stadium, and we also had talked about regulation track. So if we designated that funds for engineering services, we wanted to make sure that we designated for a project that's already been funded. Okay. So we can take the designation off as long as we know that we can pull it up.
Yeah.
Plus the board, we'll have to approve it anyway.
Yeah, we'll work that out.
Okay. You good with that, Jim?
Yeah, I just want to make sure the board understands. In my mind, I did not know, to me, it doesn't make sense to start spending money on a track and field until we're sure we've got all of our basic expenses that we've already committed to covered. And we're still about $2.5 million away from doing that. So I just, I didn't think, to me, it doesn't make sense to start spending money on track and field when we've got so far to go just to cover the things we've already committed to get these schools open.
Okay, let me give you the background on that. If you remember, those funds were originally allocated $250,000 in engineering services for K-8 that we hadn't had funding for. So that was designated at that point. So our idea, which makes sense to me, is why would you budget $250,000 in engineering services for a project that's not funded when we can do it, use it for a project that's already been funded?
Well, now the track and field is not funded, is it?
No, not yet.
No. Now what I'm saying is the school project has been funded. We wanted to designate it. It made sense to me to designate engineering services for a project that's been funded, a school's been funded, versus the one that had not been funded. So I'm good. I'm good with moving the money back into fund balance. Did you hear me, Jim? I'm good.
I heard somebody say something. I didn't know.
Yeah, I'm good with moving it back in the fund balance, as long as we know that it's could be designated later for a need.
So, okay, so what we're going to do then is just go back and say 2.4 million of fund balance will be designated for the JCM and Madison schools. And I mean, I'm fine with that. I just don't want there to be any confusion. I'm not going to be on the board next year. And I want to make sure everybody understands we still got a long way to go just to fund what we have already committed to. And we've got, like I say, probably $2.5 million to go. Now, I'm encouraged that yesterday when we talked about the need for football uniforms and athletic uniforms and band, and that made sense. And I'm encouraged to know we've already got a line item for that, and I hope that's enough. And I'm just suggesting to the board that before we go off on anything else, we make sure we've got adequate funds to meet the commitments we've already made in terms of opening these two schools.
Okay, Holly, you want to add anything else?
I'm actually correcting the note as we speak, and I thought I might pull it up real quick for the board to see before they approve it.
Okay.
If you'd like.
Okay, Tim, you got anything else?
No.
Okay, any other questions, Ray or Holly or Jim, from any other board members?
I'd like to say one thing regarding the operating budget. Just keep in mind that the June BEP estimate has not come in, and I know the governor is working on the state budget, and we may see some reductions there, and so it could impact our BEP. Currently, we're showing an increase to our BEP, so we'll see what happens.
Okay.
I'm good. I'm good with all that, and and what Holly was pointing out, what I've been trying to say, there's a lot of opportunities in this budget to go south instead of improve. So we'll just have to see, but I still think it's the best thing to do at this time.
Okay. Okay, Jim, what is the recommendation from the budget committee?
Well, but recommendation was unanimous to approve this budget.
Cool.
And how does it make the change in the narrative? You see it on the screen.
Yeah.
That good with everybody? The recommendation from the budget committee in the form of a motion is to accept the proposed 2020-21 budget. And since it's motion of committee, we don't need a second. So if we're ready to vote, Kevin,
Yes.
Wayne,
Yes.
Doris,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Carol, Janice,
Yes.
AJ,
Yes.
Shannon.
Yes.
I vote yes. So the budget is adopted. Thank you. Anything else before I ask for a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Got a motion second. We're adjourned. Thank you for y'all's time, and thanks again to Holly and Ray, all the hard work and detail they put into this budget. And again, it's a moving target, and hopefully this projections come through like we hope. And plus, we did our due diligence by submitting maintenance of effort budget. Thank y'all.
Thank you.